All right, I'm here with my buddy Bruno. And this is some warm chicken. In this video, we're going to go over some ways to get your dog to come to you. Now, Bruno's got a couple issues. He's very independent. He likes to do what he wants to do. And I think his guardians have been kind of over-engaging with him to get him to do things. And so he's kind of become passive because that gets him more attention. So one of the things to do with dogs is to be a little bit aloof. Now, what I've got here is some warm chicken. When it comes to food, the most important thing for dogs is the smell. Temperature is number 2. Taste is a distant third. So we warmed up this chicken, and yes, he'd like it all. So the first thing you do is if you want to, oh, nice. If you want to teach a dog what your word is, you need to put it in context. The way that I like to do that is I'm going to touch his nose with this. I'm going to say, come. Thanks is his marker word, and then he gets the treat. Touch his nose. Come. Thanks. I almost lost my balance. Come. Let's try that again. Come. Thanks. Now, we've been giving him a lot of treats, and I don't want to do this too much because we want him to be able to do the other lesson, which is what I call the auto recall in the yard. Can you do a favor while we're doing this? Can you warm up the rest of that chicken? Put about 20 more seconds. This is already losing a little bit of its allure. All right, so this is a simple exercise. I have you guys do this at times when he's hungry and there's no distractions. Touch his nose with a treat. You know, he likes to say come, take a step backwards. When he arrives, say thanks, his marker word, and let him have the chicken. And then move this direction, that direction. Do this in different parts of your house. Make sure there's not a lot of distractions. This is a nice way to seed the word. The word means I'm about to get a reward. Okay, so now the main problem that his guardians have is we're in California. He likes to be outside, and he's a cold weather dog. Even though it's winter and it's cold here in California, it's not anywhere cold as he wants it to be. So he likes just to lie right there, and he refuses to come in. And his guardians have in the past kind of tried to snatch him and to grab him inside. So now he kind of learns to walk away. If they come near him, he goes in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for this warm chicken that we're getting heated up, right, and I'm going to swap it out. So what I do, thank you, right? Perfect timing, perfect. Whoops, sorry about that. All right, so, hey, so he can smell it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is, hopefully you won't do this. So normally I would do this when the dog's outside. So I'm just going to go ahead and let him smell that I've got it. I'm just going to walk out, and you can come and stand in the doorway. Thanks. And I get him the chicken. And we're going to leave him out here. So that was about, let's say, 30 paces to go in the middle of the yard. And I didn't call him. And normally we would do this when the dog's outside on his own. So now I wait for him to disengage, and then I grab another piece of warm chicken, and I walk one last pace. You can walk me through the deal. Thanks. So as we're doing this, and I come back inside, I wait for him to disengage, and normally a dog is not following you if they really want to be outside. This is going to be different because he knows I have the goods for treats. But when you're doing this, he's going to be outside. So you walk out, let's say you walk 30 paces in the middle of your yard, stand there, have the chicken, don't show him you have it. As soon as he comes over to you, make sure it's warm, say thanks and give him the piece of chicken, and then walk back inside. You're not giving him any direction. When he chooses to come to you, he gets a reward, and he knows that coming to you is what you want because you say thanks, then you give him the chicken. So next time, let's say it was 25 paces the first time, next time you walk out 24 paces. Stand there, he comes up to you, thanks, give him the chicken, and then come back inside. I've never had a client that did this more than 10 times where the dog just doesn't sort of follow him wherever they want. Now, when you get here, he's learned that you're going to try to trap me. So when you come here, he's probably going to be, whoops, let's give you a little piece outside. There you go. So let's say when you come here, you're tempted as soon as he comes in to close the door. So there you go. So he comes here, just drop a piece of chicken. He comes and grabs it and let him go back out. And then wait for him to walk away and then come to the same thing. And so now I'm going to offer it a little bit further. He comes and gets it, and you're going to be tempted to close the door. Don't. So you want to have him come in like 3 or 4 times. I usually do about 3 to 5 times. And then when I'm actually going to close the door, I would kind of do something like maybe like that. Oops, sorry, buddy. and close the door after he's come in and gone back outside about 5 times. So now it just means when Dad goes outside, he's got the mother load of tasty chicken. And if I come up to him, he gives me the chicken, and then I gotta go do whatever I wanna do. And you wanna practice this at times when you're not taking him outside. I know really late at night is when he does this the most. Practicing when you don't need it is really important. We just went through an exercise of teaching him to come to where we put the leash on, and the guardians were calling him and chasing him and going around. He wouldn't do it. We started doing it, just letting him know that we had a treat. We sat down and he started coming to us. So it's the same thing. I've got this delicious chicken here. And because it's warm, we know it's something he really likes. Thanks. I'll reward that with a thanks. Now, you could give him a chicken for this, but this chicken I would probably reserve just for coming in the house because that's the biggest bugaboo that you have. Now, we also, so this is, I call this auto recall in the yard. But eventually you just come to the door and he runs up to you, you give him the chicken, you let him run back out there. So try to be mindful. If you want to bring him in 15 minutes, start doing this like 5-10 minutes beforehand. Call him over, give him the chicken, and he stays outside. And then close the door and let him go, and then keep it so it's nice and warm in the house. And if he stays there, you can open it and offer him a little bit. He comes in, let him get it, but then prove to him that you can go right back outside. I'm not going to always lock you out. And when I do actually close the door, I usually have about 5 pieces of chicken on the floor, usually deeper into the house. So while he's getting that, I can close the door, and he's like, cool with it, because there's something in it for him. Now, we also want to celebrate. Celebrating is something I like to, a lot of dog trainers call this capturing, I think, yes, or nice. Yes, me, his word is thanks. That was a good example of celebrating. I didn't ask him to sit. I'm going to do it again. Thanks. And that's his marker word, which is thanks. We're thanking him for laying down, but did I ask him to lay down? No. So when you're watching TV and he comes up to you, just say thanks and pet him. And then let him go back to whatever he wants. So, and if you recognize, let's say he's over there, and I know, and he gets up and I know he's coming to me, I might say come as he's on the way here. He comes over to me, I say thanks, and I pet him, and then I let him go back to doing what he wants to do. A lot of times come represents the end of fun. I'm yelling at the neighbor dog, and you ask me to come, and then you close this door, and I can't yell at the neighbor dog anymore. So your come represents the end of fun. So now come just means come and get your warm chicken, and then I can go back out there most of the time, or come up to mom in the house and I get a pet or attention, I hear thanks and for coming, and then I get to go back doing my other things. So yes, sometimes it means the door's closed, but that's once out of 30 times, once out of 50 times throughout the day, and that's pretty good odds. So I'm going to come to you the rest of the time because that gets me attention. Now I'm going to show you one other little thing, and I'll just have you and I do it. If you can come over here, we'll be on camera together real quick. I'll give you a couple pieces of chicken. This is how I do the group recall lesson. So I'm going to give you that pieces of chicken. Now for dogs, I'm going to have you take a couple steps back, and you stand right here, and I'll be right here. I usually like to do this with at least 3 people, but we'll just do it with 2 of us. Now for dogs, the lower your hand, the more it's for the dog. So I'm going to, let me kind of demonstrate first. So his word is come. So I'm going to say, Bruno, come. The lower you go, thanks, the more it's for the dog. So the instant he looks at me, I lower, so hold out 1 piece of chicken, just 1. Say, Bruno, come.
Bruno, come.
Lower your hand and say, thanks.
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 Bruno, come. So I waited for him to look at me before I lowered my hand, and he didn't, so I went back up. You wanted him to see that motion going down. Bruno, come. Thanks. You see how he has some enthusiasm right there. So do the same thing. 1 piece of chicken. Say Bruno first. When he looks at you, say come as you lower your hand.
Bruno,
come. Thanks.
Thanks.
I'll take a couple steps back. Wait for him to finish eating. Bruno, come. Yeah, you're shy being on TV? Thanks. All right, go ahead and do that again.
Bruno, come.
Lower. There you go. The lowering it is what will cause him to come to us. So I'm saying his name to get him to look at me. As soon as he does, then I lower my hand. That causes him to come to me. When he does, I say thanks, which is his marker word to indicate that he did the thing that I wanted, and then I provide him the reward. Now, first when we do this, we want to be about 7 feet apart, and I usually like to have it 3 people. So if I call him and he goes to you, what I'd have you do is cross your arms across your chest, look at the ceiling, and just be as boring as you possibly can. When we're doing this exercise, he only gets rewarded for coming to the person who called him. If he comes to somebody else, they just are ignoring him. And you have at least 3 people who are doing this.
Is Seb still there?
Oh, we're fine. And eventually, when he starts having a bounce and a step, and he looks like he had some enthusiasm for us, when he starts to get it, then we can all take like 2 steps backwards. And eventually, from 7 feet, we get to 15 feet, 30 feet. Now, eventually, we have one person on the other room beyond the line of sight. So he hears come, and he goes bounding, looking for that person. He comes around, thanks, and he gets that treat. And eventually, we have people on different rooms, and at first we're all in the same room, but eventually we're all in different rooms and different levels of the house. And he's coming and finding us and being rewarded for doing so. The last stage is I like to do this again outside. When I go back to outside, we all get back together, so we're all within 7 feet. We do the same thing, say his name. When he looks at us, Bruno, come! See how he's got that little bit of a quick step, thanks. And right before when he comes, you say thanks, and then he licks up the treat afterwards. And so this is basically just teaching him, hey, coming to people is a rewardable thing. So say his name again, grab a piece, yeah.
Bruno, come. Thanks.
Perfect. And so after a while, Bruno's like, it's good to come to people because that means I'm going to get a treat, as opposed to that I'm not going to be locked out and I can't yell at the squirrel, or they're going to snatch me. Or the guardians were also using a prong collar that might have created a little bit of some issues as well. Bruno, come! And if you want to get fancy, you can make him sit. Thanks. And then let him lick that off. Well, this is my buddy Bruno, and this is what I call the auto recall in the yard. This is the tips on how to teach your dog to recall consistently.